Hey there, welcome. My name is Jessica Buchanan, and I'm a New York Times bestselling author, professional speaker, and founder of Soul Speak Press, a non-traditional publishing company created for women who've been through something, now they know something, and they can teach us something. In Her Words is a podcast designed to support aspiring memoir authors on their writing and publishing journey. It's hard work, this writing and publishing stuff, and I want to empower you with encouragement and information so you can keep sharing your truth. So grab your coffee, your notebook, find a quiet space, and let's dive in. Well, hey, everybody, welcome back to In Her Words. I'm your host, Jess Buchanan. I am so excited. I say this every week, but I mean it every week too, but I am like over the moon with my guest today. And this is, actually, I should take credit for being strategic because it's October, and it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. However, I didn't put it all together until just like 5 minutes before I hopped on with our guest. But we are talking to Gila Pfeffer today. She is the author of Nearly Departed: Adventures in Loss, Cancer, and Other Inconveniences. If you can see this book, I love it. It's so good. Gila and I have been friends for a very long time. Since my WeStat days, when she was out there hustling and building connections and networking. I have never met somebody who hustles the way you do, Gila. Welcome to In Her Words. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me, and congrats on yet another podcast. And I think I'm more excited than you to be here. So, not that it's competition, but I totally am.
It's just so good to finally see your face,
Yeah,
like this, because I, of course, like stalk you on the interwebs, and keep.
vice
I'm
versa.
trying to, I'm trying to keep up with all of the amazing things that you're doing. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey, right? Like, of course, I want to hear just a quick soundbite of the book. I want everybody to go out and buy your book, but as we talked about before we started recording, this podcast is really about the brass tacks of like memoir writing
Mm.
and finding a publisher or deciding a different publishing track. And then what's the post launch been like? I have so many questions. So
Oh
just start
God,
wherever
I
you
have so
want
many answers.
and take us on your journey.
I would love to, and I'm actually so excited to be talking about this because yes, my book has a narrative arc and is the story of my story, which I'll tell you about in a second. But I feel like the road to publishing a book, my first book at the age of 50, is also its own story in and of itself.
Mhm.
So my book is Nearly Departed: Adventures in Loss, Cancer, and Other Inconveniences. And as the title hopefully indicates, it is a funny book about difficult and challenging subject matter. And just the title and subtitle alone, I can tell you, took quite a long time and quite a lot of eyeballs and brains to come
Yeah.
up with. And one thing I can tell you about publishing a book is that there's not a single aspect of it that is easy or just drops into your lap. What's the book about? Lately, what I've been saying is it's a book about losing both my parents young to cancer,
Mhm.
me trying not to get cancer, and what happened when I got it anyway. And then
Yeah.
when people's jaws hit the floor, I do a little jazz hands to let them know that it's funny and it's going to be okay.
Well, clearly it has a happy ending, a happy-ish ending, because here you are
Yep.
telling the story, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is the thing I think that makes it sets your book apart from so many others. And of course, I hang out in this space of like memoir writing where we just like sit and cry all the time. And then we have like hit the mountaintop and we're crying there too. But like there's space for tears in this book, but there's also I mean, you're just really, really effing funny. And you bring that
Thank
to
you.
the page in a way that most people don't for a subject this serious and this dire. So, I mean, has that, I guess, been your method throughout your entire journey?
Yeah, that's also my personality.
Yeah.
When I talk about me and my personal brand, like I am my voice and I am my writing. I am the same person on the page as I am in real life, as I am on social media. And I think that comes very naturally to me. And that's not to say that somebody can't learn how to write with a more humorous lens and add perhaps humor to dark subject matter. But for me, that's my personality. I've always
Yeah.
been sarcastic. I've always seen, the darkly funny side of things, whatever it is, whether it's, travesties big and small. And I even, sort of was scrounging through my old half-populated diaries of my youth, notes that I'd passed to my friends, to and from in class in like fourth and fifth grade. I don't know why I still have them, but I do. And like that's just who I've always been. It's this observational humor. It's seeing something that for whatever reason other people don't. It's you're looking at the main subject of the photo. I'm seeing the crushed soda can in the background. That's just what my brain does.
Yeah.
And in terms of, I've been asked the question, is your humor a coping mechanism for the loss and pain and grief and illness and all the annoying things I've gone through? Yes, but I think in a healthy way, right? I'm not masking what I've been through. I look at it as taking my power back, and it's like reclaiming my agency and taking the wind out of the sails of what happened and making a joke about it. It doesn't change what I'm going through. I had to sit through the chemo chair. I had to sit in that chemo chair 8 times. I had lost my hair and my hair, and when I say hair, I mean everywhere hair. But
Mm,
instead of, when I finished crying about it, which I did because I was really, really angry, I just saw funniness in it. I'm like, this is what's going through my brain right now. And so humor is a very important, not coping mechanism in that it masks what you're going through, but
mm.
it's a very powerful tool.
Yeah.
And I'm Jewish, and it's an especially Jewish thing, to paint or to go through adversity with your humor intact. And I've read research and articles that talk about humor as a life-saving device,
Mhm.
that's what
Yeah.
can get you through. You've been through your own difficult times, and I
Yeah.
have to imagine that some ridiculousness went through your head where you were
A
just
hundred
making yourself
percent.
laugh.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't like claim to be a funny person. Like I'm the first one to say like I'm not very funny. But yeah, like I think about sometimes I tell that story of like a couple days into the kidnapping, waking up and looking over and realizing that the pirates had locked the keys in the getaway car. And I remember turning to Paul saying like it's official, like we've been kidnapped by the world's dumbest pirates. Like,
And that's
so I
hilarious.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
you're
it
still
is.
kidnapped, but
Yeah. I mean, but they're fucking dumb. Like,
right, like
so
your brain is already on the movie version of this after you've
yes. Yeah.
been
Yeah.
rescued.
But you're right.
Um,
It's a survival tactic, I think, especially in those hard times.
yes.
Um, when did you decide or realize like, hey, I could actually turn this into a book? And I think people would want to read it because I find, especially with my clients, like that is the biggest like barrier and challenge hurdle to get over is accepting or understanding that somebody might think your story is interesting and it's worth writing about.
Yes, and at cocktail parties and in the company we keep, people will often in response to a shocking or dramatic anecdote say, "Oh my God, you should write a book about that." Um,
Mhm.
I don't know that it's only the story itself that makes something book worthy. I think it's also the way it's told. I could have written this story as a very cut and dry or very gut-wrenching story, and for me, I wanted to take people on readers on a journey, sort of up down, and just when you think it's safe to laugh, I'm going to punch you in the gut again, and then just when you think you can't bear that, I'm going to make it okay by giving you a big funny joke hug, but not quips and jokes, but more interwoven. And I don't know that, publishers are always deciding what stories are worth being told and not. And that's where other paths to publication become so important because there's a lot of stories out there that are worth telling, and there's a lot of mediums through which to tell these stories. I know the exact moment that I decided to turn this into a book, and it was nowhere near my publication date. We're talking more than a
Yeah.
decade before. I've always been a person of words. I've always, majored in English Lit in college, edited
Yep.
my literary journal in high school. Like I'm a words person. I was a writer and I just didn't know it. And
Mhm.
so when I was sitting in my oncologist office for the first time, realizing that I'm sitting in an oncologist office, but I went on, through I went to the most drastic ends of the earth. I had a preventive double mastectomy at a time when nobody knew what that was. Angelina Jolie was 5 years away from announcing hers. I tested positive for BRCA. I was one of the earliest people to be gene tested right when it became available to the public, not through a spit test, but through an expensive private blood test. I was so ahead of the curve in prevention. I'm like, how am I still sitting in an oncologist office? How did this
Mhm.
happen to me? And something hit me in that moment where she was walking me through the steps of what I would do when I lost my hair, and she encouraged me to get a fancy wig. And when she said get a fancy wig, my brain immediately went to a Marie Antoinette style wig that I would,
Mhm.
you'd see it over the aisles of canned goods at Stop and
Yeah.
Shop. What she meant was get an expensive wig, not a cheap, crappy one. But this is where my brain started going, and I just thought, this is going to be a book. Do I know anything about writing a book or publishing a book? No. But that was the first thought where I said, my mom died of breast cancer at 42. Her mom died of breast cancer at 49. I've tried not to get it. And here I am sitting in this flippant
Hmm.
oncologist office, at 35, being told I'm going to have preventative chemo, which is still going to have the same devastating effects on me as it would somebody who was having chemo to shrink a tumor. So that was my first thought. How long did it take after that? It would be years of taking writing classes and getting a new laptop and buying just the right pen and turning my desk the other way, because all of these things are things that writers do that they
Yeah.
think are going to help them write the book, when in fact it's really just sitting down, writing your story, and then getting a good person to edit it in a way that
Yeah.
makes it not, a crappy first draft. But you know, I I knew my story was worth telling because I was interested in my story. And I said, I can't be the only person out there who would find this story interesting. Woman tries to avoid breast cancer, gets it anyway. Oh my God, you've got to be kidding. And
Yeah.
so my story won't be for everyone, but it'll be for a lot of people. And in addition to that, it was a continuation of my breast cancer prevention activism, which kicked into high gear when I was 20, when my mom died. So there was this growing sense of me wanting to tell my story, not just to reclaim my power and agency, but to share it with people who aren't talking about it and who
Right.
it's not on their minds. So I did have this sense of, I didn't even know I was being an activist about it, but something about me wanted to shout from the rooftops, check yourself, speak to your doctor, have a mammogram, know your risk profile, all that stuff.
Yes. And I think that that's such a great, like, succinct way to put it. And I'm writing this down. I have this like big desk calendar that I put notes on, not keep track of things. Memoir is a form of activism.
Hmm,
I've never thought about it really that way, but it really is, because this is why we tell our stories, not because we think we're so special, but because we want to help somebody, right? Because of what we've been through, what we know now, and the lessons that we want to teach them. And that in and of itself is a form of activism. So I think that that's very helpful to frame it that way for the woman out there who's considering but thinking maybe her story's not worthy or she's not good enough, and she's paralyzed, by that imposter syndrome that comes across as self-sabotage when you keep moving your desk in different places to sit down and write. Just gotta write, like we've all been there. Okay, so you and I have actually worked together on in a professional capacity,
mhm.
uh, like I years ago at this point, and you were very adamant that you wanted to take the traditional publishing route. So tell us a little bit more about that and why that mattered so much to you.
I think you made a very strong case for the hybrid route, and it was something that I was considering. And I still, people reach out to me via my website, new writers who want advice, lots of memoir writers, and I am quick to give them this advice about hybrid or less traditional routes, because I don't think they know about it, and I think they should know about it, because it may
Mhm.
be their path to publication and their way of getting their stories out there. But I think the reason that I was so adamant was probably the people that I'd surrounded myself with. Memoir writing is hard. That was the first piece of advice I was given by a
Yeah.
veteran agent in the industry. She's been an agent for more than 30 years at a big agency, and she happens to be a friend of mine. And she's like, "Look, memoir writing is hard," and that's sort of an umbrella statement for lots of things. It's not just that it's physically and emotionally hard in obvious ways, but it's hard to get published if you're not a known entity or you don't have a tremendous platform and following. Publishers mostly don't want to invest in you, and for whatever reason, the narrative is still very much nobody buys memoir. I don't know why. I love memoir, and
Me too,
I'm looking at a
clearly.
shelf full of memoir that I adore,
Same.
and I
Yeah.
primarily read it. So, what are you actually talking about when you say
Yeah.
nobody buys memoir? Like, that's baloney.
Yeah.
Anyway, but because I entered this game um, on the audience building side, where I was, dealing with non-writers, that was purely through Instagram. But on the industry side, I was, I was networking with other established writers, published writers, authors who, aren't making money from publishing. They're making money from coaching and teaching and all
Yep.
the things they do on the side, which is vital and important and helped me a lot. And I worked with some of them. And I think the publishing world very much, I think, wants to, keep a good thing going.
Yeah.
They've owned that world for so long. I think they can probably see. I don't know what hybrid and self-publishing is doing to the business of traditional publishing, but it's one thing is clear is that there's a lot more paths to publication for people. I think that my desire to try to go traditional was based a lot on the people I was talking to, and I also felt that it might give me more of a support system, right? The traditional publisher, and I'm with an indie publisher, so they're
Mhm.
small, but they are modeled on the big five. So they have all
Yeah.
the departments and everything that the big five have. And I have felt extremely supported and encouraged, and like a partnership with the marketing department, the publicity department. My editor was phenomenally wonderful. I can't even think of who else could have edited this book but her. She was the perfect editor for this, and I got to tell the story that I wanted to tell in the way I wanted to tell it. I got the book cover that I wanted, and not a lot of people have this experience with traditional
I
publishers.
mean, I'm like floored. I love hearing that,
Yeah,
but I'm just like so surprised.
many people are, and I don't know. I could just see that they valued my book. I know enough about publishing now to know that there are books that publishers will back more, less so for whatever the reasons.
Yeah.
And I thought my book was really backed. I don't know if it's that I brought a lot to the table in terms of my own ability to market myself and my
Right.
own networking capabilities and my own, I'm in London right now, but I split my time between New York and London. Like I have access to several markets, and it's not unusual for me to stay up till 1 or 2 in the morning to join a Zoom or a meeting or a class. And maybe they appreciated that level of hustle, as you called it earlier.
Yes.
But
Yes.
that was the reason that uh I was so adamant about taking that route. It doesn't mean that had that not worked out, I would not have explored the hybrid route. And we talked about this, you and I, because
Yeah.
I had one goal, and that was to publish my book. I wanted to tell the story. It had to come out of me. It just
Yeah.
had to get out.
Hmm. Well, and to your point about the marketing, um, and also, okay, let me backtrack for a minute. I think that that is often the case with memoir, right? It's like comes from a beyond us, this need to purge
Yep.
and articulate what we've been through and what we know now, and it's kind of almost feels like a compulsion, and that you don't have any choice, and it's relentless, and so you just have to. I totally feel that. I didn't feel that way with Impossible Odds because it just happened so quickly, and
Yeah.
no, but I felt that way with Deserts to Mountaintops, and the way it's unfolded was not nearly anything like I thought it was going to, but I'm happy with the way it's unfolded. So I know I remember talking to you way back in the day, and the recommendation maybe from your network or your agent friend was build your audience first.
Oh yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about that because I know you as Gila Feel It on the First Pfeffer, uh, social media influencer. That's how I was introduced to you. So let's chat a
Right.
little bit about that because oh my gosh, I could pull out every single one of the hairs on my head for the number of conversations I have with potential clients who don't understand that
Yeah.
that it doesn't matter how incredible your story is, like you've got to bring something to the table if you're going to traditional publishing.
And you're publishing memoir. I mean, yeah, I've got
Yeah.
several friends who've been agented for a while and still haven't, by a while, I mean a couple of years, haven't
Yeah.
gotten deals. I have a friend writing nonfiction who's agented and has quite a large social media following. I'm talking hundreds of thousands across various platforms, and also for whatever reason isn't getting a bite. There's not always a rhyme or reason to it, and I think a lot of it has to do with your stars being aligned. You need getting the right agent is like choosing the right life partner. It's that important. You need to be in a relationship with this person. So it's not just, oh, any agent will represent me. Hallelujah. You want the right agent. And then
Hmm.
you also want the right publisher who can help you achieve your goals or realize what you're trying to do in terms of um, growing an audience. You know, the word platform is so nebulous. It can mean anything. It's kind of the
Yeah.
publisher just wants to know how many people can you reach through whatever medium. And even though they know by now very, very well that a social media following does not always translate into books. This has been
Yep.
proven with celebrity memoirs, where the memoir comes out and the sales tank and everyone's like, what? And their audience
Yeah.
wants to hear their music. They're not
Right.
interested in reading their
Right.
memoir or what is a takedown or a tell-all. You know,
Yeah.
memoirs are never, once upon a time I had the most amazing life ever and everything was great, and now I want to tell you how great my life is, the end. That's not a
Right.
memoir. Memoir is going to have challenge and adversity and strife and darkness and hopefully triumph in the end. But you're going
Mhm.
to read some dark things. Um, a cartoonist friend of mine and I did a spoof for the New Yorker about book blurbs and what they really mean. And we riffed on like the titles, the subtitles, and the blurbs because they're so tropey sometimes,
Yeah.
the words that are used over and over. But the advice I was given by this agent friend of mine years ago was grow an audience. And so the very first thing that I did back in 2018 was I started a blog. It was called The Mom Who Knew Too Much. And it was a place for me to post publicly for the first time ever my writing. And it really was just a traditional blog where, but I wasn't just sort of riffing off of what was in my head. I carefully worded sort of 700 to 800 word posts that had, my voice, humor, and ultimately a lesson to be learned. That blog is defunct because the next step from that blog was to start pitching personal essays, humor pieces, and also on the side, taking online courses to learn how to do that. How do you
Mhm.
write a pitch? How do you get in front of editors of the publications you want to be in? Growing an audience that way and establishing myself as a writer
Mhm.
who is paid to write and who these publications deem worthy of publishing my stuff. Alongside that, she said, I was on Instagram early on. I was an early adapter, but it was private. It was a place to share in my family life with my family abroad. Here's cute pictures of my kids, always private. She's like, you need a public Instagram handle. So I started at The Mom Who Knew Too Much, and I saw that some of my kids were already kind of a bit older, but still living at home. I thought the mom blogger content route was sort of an easier way in, right? The Instagram
Mhm.
growth had already slowed a bit, but that was a good community to network with. And they were wonderful, and we shared each other's content. And I wrote, memes and tweets about parenting teens and whatnot. And that was a really good way to grow. But I wasn't growing my writing community, I was growing a consumer
The mom
audience.
blogger. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And eventually, when I hit 20,000 followers, I made a very big decision. And that decision was to change my handle to at Gila Pfeffer and change all of my handles across everything to at Gila Pfeffer. And the reason I say that's big is because people who are looking for mom parenting blog content or parenting humor and memes tend not to look at people's names. They want, sort
Yeah.
of cute parenting related. Like
Yeah.
there's one,
Yeah.
a friend of mine goes by at Mom and Buried, and her husband is at Dad and Buried, and
Yes. Yes.
they're
I know that one. I
very,
follow them.
they're
Yeah.
great, and they're friends of mine, and they're funny, and they make great content across multiple platforms. But I didn't want to do that anymore. My kids were getting older, and I just thought I'm not going to have a lot to bring to the table anymore. And I kind of said everything I had to say about my kids leaving socks on the floor and not flushing the toilet. That's not what I had to remind myself what I came here to do, and that's to tell my breast cancer story of,
Mhm.
grit, chutzpah, and survival. And the
Mhm.
kid stuff plays a small part of it, but I had to get myself back on track. So I changed my handle, and what that did was it slowed my growth quite a lot, but it gave me more targeted and organic growth. And
Yes.
I started to post more about books that I'd read, like writing mini reviews and tagging the author. And what surprised the hell out of me was that 9 out of 10 times authors would write back to say, "Oh, thank you so much for," like, their appreciation was really there. Where I thought, "Oh no, this is a famous person. I'll never hear back from them." And I've established really lovely professional connections and friendships with authors from whom I've gone on to learn. In writer world, having 20,000 followers on Instagram was astronomically high,
Yeah.
but in the real world and in agent world and in publishing world, it's not. But it was something to it was something to hang my hat on and talk about and say, look, I can connect with an audience, and although my numbers aren't skyrocketing, I'm on DMs all day long. Like, there's a very important conversation happening. I value everyone being there. I have people who've been there from day one. I have people following me now who've been with me for 7 years.
Mhm.
And they are, I don't take their time and presence for granted. They could be interacting with a lot of other people online, but I was able to demonstrate that I've got a core loyal audience.
Yeah.
And I also had a couple of pieces that did well. My first piece for a humor publication called McSweeney's, an open letter to Tiffany and Co. about the ring. Oh God, for the advertisement about the ring that reminds women they survived cancer. And that was an actual ad. And I wrote this funny piece that kind of did pretty well and went all over the
Huh?
place. And that establishes you
Yeah.
as someone too who can reach, you know, other audiences.
Yes.
The question is, where are the book buyers? They're everywhere and they're nowhere.
Yeah.
But I guess if you can show that you are comfortable online, comfortable marketing yourself,
Hmm.
even if it's to what's considered a micro audience, it's important, especially for nonfiction, that you are part of your brand and you're just out there.
Yeah. 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 Just being visible, right?
Yeah.
Just being
And writers
seen.
don't want to hear it. A lot of writers are, what do we live in dark caves and we tap away on our laptops, but people
Yes.
want more now. There's no
Yeah.
privacy anymore. People want
Yeah.
to know something about you. They want
No.
to see your kitchen. They want to see what you're cooking for dinner.
Yeah.
And you don't, I will say this for people who are concerned about, writers who are concerned about dipping into that and, you know, giving up any of their privacy, you can dictate what you do and don't show. You don't have to be like, here's my bank account and my
Right.
social security number. It's more, here's a slice of my life where I've written this book, but there's more to me. I'm a three-dimensional, four-dimensional
Yeah.
human. And
Yeah.
people want that. And if you give them that, they will be interested enough in you to buy your art that you've worked so hard to create because they want to know more about you.
Yes. And then they're going to be loyal followers and they're going to buy the next one. And then they're going to buy the next one and they're going to tell their friends about it. And that
And then
is
they'll
why
say,
we
"Oh, it's
build
time for
brands.
Hanukkah and Christmas. What am I going
Yes.
to give my friends? My favorite
Yes.
book." I've done
Yeah.
that. There are books I love where I'm like, I'm buying 10 copies. This is what everyone's
Absolutely.
getting for Hanukkah this year.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
that's the best.
Yeah. Well, I actually had a couple copies of your book. And if I'm honest, I had put this in an envelope to mail to a friend, but
Love
loaned the
that.
other book out. So then had to rip it out of the envelope for this interview. So to your point, right?
I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I think if you want to be a successful author, and I mean, definitions of success vary absolutely 100%, but you have to, and I harp on this all the time because I am really passionate about building a brand. And you have to build an author brand. And part of that is just, yeah, showing up and letting people into your process, letting them into your life, into your interests. Like, people accuse me of only talking about one thing all the time, which is the kidnapping. And I'm like,
Right.
clearly you didn't look at my profile because I talk about all kinds of stuff. But, yes, there are so many things. I'm very visible online, but there's so many things people don't know about me, about my
Sure.
family, like the absolute train wreck that my office is right now. I'm
Not
not
the part
showing
I'm
you.
looking at.
Yeah, I'm not showing you guys that. But yeah, I think, oh my gosh, what an awesome conversation. Thank you so much for, I know your time is very valuable. I know you're very busy.
And you,
I
lady.
well, I mean,
No, I
I
do
like
know.
it. I love it. I'm happiest when I've got like 16 balls in the air. Like, I don't know. I just like the challenge of seeing how much I'm gonna drop. But I want to know what's next for you.
Yeah, what's next for me? Is there another book in me? For sure, but not right now. Right now, I spent so long thinking
Yeah.
about this book and willing it into existence. And it turns out that writing a book is not the same thing as publishing a book, is not the same thing as marketing a book.
Yes. The long game.
I It's the long game, and I have a lot. My book's only 3 months old in the US and less than 2 months old in the UK. And I've got a lot of things that I want to do to get this book into the right hands. I've got a 2.5 week secondary book tour coming up on the East Coast. I've got West Coast stuff coming up. I think some people can just finish their first book and immediately start on their second book. I this is the most not just the most personal thing I've ever written. It's been a goal of mine for so long that I really want to give it the time and attention that I think it deserves to
Mhm.
get it to as many people as possible and just kind of see what it can do. I don't want to take away any of the attention from it yet. So I'm still working on pitching humor pieces and some personal essays. I've got to get back to my Substack, which is called Feeling It, also very on brand. Make sure that my writing writing skills and writing muscle keep going. But I love this book so much. I am so proud of what I've accomplished. Not just that I've defied the odds by actually publishing the book, but in how it came out. And I will say that I'm not someone who says that lightly. I'm just as likely to be like, oh, it's all right. You know what? I love it. And every time I open to a random page and read a page, I'm like, I wouldn't change a thing on this page. And
Oh,
that, yeah, I wish that for every author. I'm so proud of it. My kids have read it. I'm proud that they've seen their longtime stay-at-home mom, make time to feed and achieve a goal of hers. That's what's next for me is a lot more book talk, a lot more breast cancer prevention advocacy. That's not going anywhere. You can see my
yep,
little breast
yep,
buddies
yep,
behind me,
yep.
always nodding at you.
Love it.
And meeting a lot more, people like you, making more friends like you along the way, because this community that we've got is special and very supportive.
I love it. Oh, you're just such a breath of fresh air, Gila. Thank you so much. Where can people find you? Where can they buy the book? How can they support you?
You can find me anywhere that I exist as at Gila Pfeffer. One great thing about having a less than common name is that the handles aren't taken. So I live on Instagram and Threads, and my Substack is called Feeling It. If you subscribe, it's free. You'll get something in your inbox whenever I put something in your inbox. The book is available pretty much wherever you buy books, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, a lot online and lots of storefront Barnes and Nobles. But if you go to my website, gilapfeffer.com, you'll see a link there too. And I'm extremely responsive. So please reach out about anything book related, breast cancer related, Jewish culture related. I will get back to you.
Love it. Thank you so much. Congratulations.
Thank
It's so
you.
inspiring, and I can't wait to see where this book goes.
You and me both, sister. Thank you.
Words is hosted by me, Jessica Buchanan, and is produced by Soul Speak Press, a non-traditional publishing house for women who are ready to tell their story. If you would like to know more about our submission process, I encourage you to check us out at www.soulspeakpress.com or follow us over on Instagram at soulspeakpress. We appreciate all your questions, and if you would like to leave us a review, we would be so grateful.